I am sorry because in India we are a multilingual people. We have many languages. So I cannot speak in Tamil. So I am speaking a common language. That is in English. So I will be very, it's okay. I will be very, okay. Yes. I will be very brief. But at the same time, the central topic of our discussion is that today, the 2 centuries old Anglo-Saxon imperialism, which means 1 century of British-led colonial ways of imperialism, and then after that, for the competitive, when capitalism was in the competitive stage, that is from the 18th century to the end of the 19th century, when capitalism, industrial capitalism was advancing in Europe. At that time, Britain was leading as the colonial power, having an empire upon which the sun never set, and the pound sterling as the international currency. So Britain was leading the whole world. But by the end of the 19th century, even when colonialism was continuing, capital, that is a world system led by finance capital. When this imperialism or finance capital came to the forefront, instead of Britain, America came to the leadership. Some people will think that America came to the leadership only after the Second World War. Even by the beginning of the 20th century itself, when capitalism became imperialism, America was the biggest, the largest country, imperialist country in the world. Britain was not that much big. America was having the biggest power, military power, and even economic power, every sphere. And not only that, along with the pound sterling, dollar also became the internationally accepted currency. But there was an agreement. Along with the pound sterling, dollar also should be used. But we know that after the Second World War, because when the Second World War took place, following which a decolonization, that means the old colonial order transformed into a new colonial order, in which the US imperialism came to the leadership, and Britain was weakened. Not only Britain, all European countries were totally weakened because of the war. Taking advantage of that situation, we know US imperialism came to the leadership of the imperialist world, and a whole set of political, economic, military arrangements also came into being. You know, United Nations and the Security Council, the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, the NATO, and a whole set of military arrangements. Also, as you know, probably America, even now, America has almost 750 to 800 military bases in around 90 countries of the world, even now. So that much military power is there. So into that, America started the new colonial world order. All these things are common things, you know everything. And by the collapse of the Soviet Union, by the 90s, because until the collapse of Soviet Union, a Cold War took place, you know, Soviet Union on one hand, America led by America on the other, and its allies. And the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, 90s, when America became the only superpower. A unipolar world came into being, a bipolar. When Soviet Union was leading or having that, even now Russia is one of the biggest military powers in the world. Economically it is weak, but militarily America cannot overcome Russia so easily. That is why in Ukraine war, now US imperialism is taking a different position today under Trump. That we will take it later. So what happened is that, so when Soviet Union collapsed, America became the undisputed leader. But by the turn of the 21st century, many changes have taken place. Today, to start with, because I need not go into the details, America is a leading military power today, no doubt. American military expenditure is actually 1 trillion. 1 trillion means 1 lakh crore dollars. To find out the rupee, you have to again multiply by more than 90. So $1 trillion is the annual military expenditure. China is having only 25% of that. So America is the leading military power today. But in other aspects, especially the economic base, what is the material base of everything? It is production, it is the economy, it is the real economy. From a financial perspective, America is leading. Speculating that finance capital is leading, America is leading in speculation. In what is called the corporate speculation, money spinning businesses, America is leading. But in terms of real production, America is far behind China. Because according to latest data, latest statistics, 30% of the world industrial production is coming from China. 30%. In monetary terms, it is 5.65 trillion. $5.65 trillion. Chinese industrial production, manufacturing. America is having only less than half of it, less than $50 trillion. Less than half of Chinese industrial production. So that you can imagine. Similarly, in terms of global trade, international trade, I am saying all these from statistics. China is the largest trading country in the world today. Almost 70 to 80 countries are now directly trading with China, while US is having trade relation, direct trade relation only with 30 countries of the world. In terms of export of capital investment, capital export, China is the leading power, and you might have heard about a Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), in which more than $1 trillion investment is envisaged under BRI. So that is the biggest capital export program in history. So all these are facts. That is, there is a material shift, there is a change in the material basis of capital imperialism today. Even though still, in terms of military power, America is the leading country. That we must understand. What happens today is that, which I have already stated in the beginning, that by 200 years of Anglo-Saxon imperialism means Anglo means Angles. You know, the Europeans, they are the original clans. Original tribe was Angles and Saxons. That is why we say Anglo-Saxon. And we say US is also, Canada is also the same tradition as Angles. That is from Britain that the migrants, you know, Pilgrim fathers all went to USA and Canada, etc. They occupied. The entire indigenous people of the American Indians, the indigenous Americans, the all were eliminated, completely eliminated. The biggest extermination, the biggest massacre in human history, done by America. And therefore, this when we say Angles, it is including Anglo-Saxon means including America, Canada, and Europe, the entire European countries. That is Anglo-Saxon. So Anglo-Saxon imperialism means UK led British-led colonialism or colonial imperialism. Then after that a century of US-led imperialism. Now we are in the 21st century, in the third decade of the 21st century. Now what we are witnessing is that a basic shift, a fundamental shift is taking place in world imperialist system. Now when people say Trump is only a symptom. Trump is a symptom of the decay, the declining phase, the what is called the collapsing phase of the hegemony of US imperialism. US imperialism will continue, no doubt. US will continue, but what is going to take place or what has already taken place is that instead of a unipolar world led by US imperialism, a multipolar world means many imperialist powers with China having a dominant role is coming to the forefront. I must tell you one more thing. For example, you take the use of dollar. In 1945, when the dollar became the world currency, because when America came to the scene after the Second World War, when America took the leadership of the imperialistic camp, as I already said, many arrangements were made. The United Nations Organization, with the veto power, with American veto power in Security Council, you know, IMF and World Bank with American veto power. No countries in the world have any veto power in IMF and World Bank. Only America has the power. If America does not want, IMF and World Bank cannot take a decision. These are even now facts. So with the veto power in these monetary institutions and military, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, everything is there. We will take up some of these questions in also for discussion. What I am trying to say is the question of dollar. In 1945, when America took the initiative as the world leader, one of the decisions was that dollar should be the international currency, pound sterling. Until that time, pound was the world currency. So, world currency is connected to the leading imperialist power. When Britain was the leading imperialist power, pound sterling was the international currency. When America took the initiative, dollar became the international currency. This is the history. These are the historical facts. Now, at that time in 1945, 75% of the world gold stock, total gold in the world, available gold stock in the world, 75% of the world gold stock was with the US imperialism in 1945. And now, US imperialism has only less than 20% of the world gold stock. Today, only less than 20%, 1945, 75% of the world gold stock. You can imagine. In 1945, when Britain and Europe, because part two economies, you know, America was not a war. All the war, the Second World War, the entire war, battles and wars, everything took place in other countries. Europe, Asia, Japan. America was not a war, but America was the biggest gainer. Because when the war started, Second World War started, America became the biggest supplier of military materials in the military industrial complex. America became the leading country supplying everything needed for the war because Europe and Britain collapsed. All industrial production collapsed. But America was, because America was not a war, America used the Second World War and using the Second World War, America increased its economy, developed its economy such that by 1945, 50% of the world GDP. GDP means gross domestic product. Total production in 1 year, that is called gross domestic product. So in terms of global, in terms of GDP, 50%, one country, America was having 50% of the total GDP means world production in 1944. These are historical facts. Nobody can counter that. Nobody can challenge that. These are facts. Today, America is having only less than 25% of GDP. And according to there is many measurements, and because some when we discuss serious political questions, while we analyze these things, we must know one thing. You can measure a country's national income in nominal terms. Nominal means in dollar terms. You can also measure a country's national income in terms of the real purchasing power of the currency of that country. Can you understand what I said? Purchasing power of a currency. Based on the purchasing power of a currency, if you measure the GDP of countries, China is the number one country today. America is having only 75% of Chinese GDP. These are also facts. So what I am saying is, today, a de-dollarization, what is called a de-dollarization? De-dollarization is an ongoing fact in the world. Many countries of the world are moving away from gold. Sorry, dollar. No, many of the Europe already Europe, Europe has a currency. You know that Europe, all European Union is now using euro. China is using its currency yuan. BRICS, BRICS means China led a grouping. China, India is also there, but India is a lackey of US. Lackey, a running dog of US. Even though India is in BRICS, except India, all countries of the BRICS are now against dollar. And they have declared that an alternative BRICS unit is going to be taken. These are all going on. All of a sudden it will not happen, but the process is there. And in China's relation with, for example, ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, 14, 10 plus some 6 countries are there. There is an RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership led by China. In that also, yuan is dominating, not dollar. Russia-China economic relations, dollar is not there, only yuan and ruble. What I am saying is that majority of the world is, or many places of the world, dollar is now shifting to another position. This is there, but still the role of dollar is coming down. Why we are saying this, the power of a country today, America's power not arises from production, not arises from its economic power, but also due to the capacity of dollar as the world currency. But why is the advantage? Suppose dollar is the world currency. America can print any amount of dollar, give the dollar, take any amount of goods, any amount of commodities, resources from the world, because dollar is acceptable. All countries are getting $1 for transaction. America can print dollar. Printing dollar, America can get world resources. That is advantage. So America was enjoying this advantage for a long time as the world currency being dollar. But now what happens? That also is being challenged. This is what I am explaining. Because our title, I know our title is the changing, shifting global imperialist power balance. That is the title. And what is called the new developments thereby. That is the title, I think. So when we take up all these questions, but I always stated that the 200 years of Anglo-Saxon imperialism, UK-led and American-led imperialism is now in a declining phase. It's not gone, it's there, but it is the relative strength of these US, EU, United States and European Union, Anglo-Saxon, EU and US, European Union and US. There, that alliance is also collapsing. What is happening today? You might have heard that European Union is now going for an independent European army. So far, European Union had no army. After the Second World War, Europe was protected by NATO. You know that? There was no army for European Union. European defense was taken over by America. America was providing protection. European Union is also contributing, but major share of the NATO expenditure came from America. Therefore, European Union was very quite, they were enjoying protection provided by American imperialism. That is NATO, world's largest military organization, non-binding treaty organization, NATO. But what is happening now? Trump has stated, that is why I am saying that Trumpism is only a symptom of the weakening of American imperialism. What is Trump saying? America is not having the power, the economic basis. It is not having the capacity to fund, finance European defense, European security. That is Trump's demand. He has stated that Europe should raise its military expenditure up to 5% of GDP. GDP means national product, gross domestic product. So European Union is having serious problems because European Union developed. The Europe became so developed. After the Second World War, Europe developed mainly because of the American help. But because Europe is not like India, not like Africa, not like Latin America, it was capitalist. So because of that capitalist base, when development took place in Europe after the Second World War, that development actually contributed to decline in US power. What happened in 1970? In the 1971, you remember? Nixon was the American president. Nixon made a declaration. What was the declaration? The convertibility of dollar into gold was taken away. I will explain. The meaning is this. In 1935, 45, when dollar became the international currency, an understanding was there. 1 ounce of gold, these are also facts, 1 ounce of gold is equal to $35. So if me or anybody, if they go to America without 1 ounce of dollar, America will give that. European Union countries, their gold reserve increased. American gold reserve went down from 75% to 20%. So America cannot exchange gold. Gold is with the European Union. Therefore, what Nixon said, he took away the convertibility of dollar into gold. That was a historic decision. See, America was pumping dollar into the global market. Why? No alternative. We need a currency. We need an international medium of exchange. We need an international something for storing our value. We need an international currency for our future payments. For that, there is no alternative. That is why dollar continues. Not because of the general that respect or acceptability is not there. But today, what happens is that 21st century, now dollar is being replaced by other arrangements. Not only by yuan, Chinese yuan, but the most important one, as Commander Karki and Manohar said about the artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Now this artificial intelligence is being used in the case of digital currency, digitization. Frontier technologies are used now. Central banks of various countries are now resorting to central bank digital currency. There is no paper money. Only digital currency. So digitization of the world currency system is going on. As a result of digital currency, countries can enter into I am not going to the technicalities. Only this point I am saying that because of the digitization of currencies, dollar is becoming weak. So all these are facts. Now, friends, what I started in the beginning, that history, there is nothing permanent. Some people will say, history will not change. History is, it is an impermanent. There is a law. There is a law in history. What is a law? Law of impermanence. Everything will be changing. Empires, Roman Empire was a millennium, 1,000 years Roman Empire prevailed, but it collapsed. British Empire collapsed. So everything will be collapsing because changes will be taking place. What is the change? Today, American imperialism or world imperialist system as a whole is facing a very severe crisis. I am going to explain that also in a few words. I am coming to the question of the left also in that process. The international left communists, including us, we. What is the situation of the left today? We must understand. Very pitiable situation. We must self-critically understand. When we are communists, we should self-critically understand that left is not only in India. In India, we know left is a French group. Communists are a French group. They are not in the mainstream. Mainstream there, but they are not decisive in a country. The largest, the most populous country, India, 145 crore people. Communists are not dominant there. At a global level also, communists are not dominant. Ideology is there. We can ideologically challenge, explain, defeat, we can have argue with any force, no problem. But politically, organizationally, we are too weak. Why? That is the question that we have to discuss here. When we are discussing, we can explain anything, but we have to discuss why the left, why the communists have failed. On that question, I am saying something. Then we will come to the other issues. In 1930s, when before second world, you might have heard in the 1930s, great economic depression. Many people might have heard. Every student reading history, might have heard this thing. Great economic depression. What was 1930s? Great economic depression. Only Soviet Union was advancing. Socialist Soviet Union was advancing. Because Soviet Union from 1970 to 1950, Soviet Union had grown by 20 times. Russia was a backward country. Russia was one of the most backward country in the world. Even though Russia was a big country, it was a very big country, large geographical spread is there, but Russia was a weak country. But that Russia, after becoming October Revolution, that Russia, that means USSR, Soviet Union, developed 20 times by 1950. But during the Great Depression, American GDP collapsed to less than half. You may have heard in Atlantic, ships were taken, big ships full of wheat. These wheat were taken to Atlantic, thrown away because no demand. No demand for purchasing wheat, for buying. There is no demand for wheat because wheat production is there. Nobody there to demand. People have no money purchasing for. No real income. And wheat was used in railway engine instead of coal. Wheat was pushed into the railway engine because no demand for wheat. This was the situation. People were starving, dying, but capitalism will not give food freely. Capitalism should get money. So because of there is no demand, no money was coming. the production was destroyed. This was I am just taking an example what happened in depression. So America was collapsing. Because of the main reason was speculation. As Lenin said, when capitalism became imperialism, instead of industry, instead of production, speculation started. Now, you know, who are the biggest billionaires of the world? They are not entering into production. They are in the money spending stock market, in other financial businesses, banks, real estate, stock market, you know everything. Futures, trades, options, many things are there. So there no production is there. Biggest financiers, biggest billionaires of the world are not concentrating on production. They are remaining in the sphere of speculation. They are using their influence for extracting surplus from the real economy, real production. That is their main business today. That is why millionaires are doing, Adani Ambani are doing, but people are going down. Because employment is generating, production is not there. Job oriented production is not there. Economy is developing. But this development is reflected in not real production, but in financial expansion. I am not going into such details, but we must know. I am just telling one example. 90% of the economy today, world economy today, 90% of total world economic activity are nothing to do with real production. It is in financial transactions and financial businesses. This is the situation. So all these started in the 20th century. Because of that speculative business, production collapsed. So what I am saying is that America experienced the first crisis in the 30s. America experienced the first crisis in the 30s. That is why, but at that time, communist movement was advancing. Soviet Union was there. All over the world, the communist parties were developing, advancing. Chinese Revolution was advancing. We know 30s, 40s, Chinese, everything. Not in Chinese Revolution advancement, mainly in 40s, but we know 30s it started. At that time, what imperialism did, imperialism took a different care. That is what is called the state intervention. Keynesianism, Keynesian welfare state, you know, it started in the 30s in America in the form of Roosevelt's time. Their economic policy changed. That perfectly competitive, that free competition was stopped, state intervened. What the Keynes said, you know, Keynes, the leader of the economic leader, the economist, world famous economist of the 30s, his name was John Maynard Keynes, a leader, world famous leader. His name is associated with the welfare capitalism or Keynesian welfare state. Keynes said that euthanasia for speculative capital. Euthanasia means killing, mercy killing. Speculative capital should be abolished. They should not be allowed to work. So that is why state intervention came. Why state intervention came? Socialism was advancing. Political, ideological advancement of the communists were there. Therefore, this welfare state was an ideological weapon against communism. But in the 70s, again, imperialism means inherent crisis is there. Why imperialism, capitalism is in crisis? Workers are producing, but they will not get enough money, wages for purchasing or for living. It is taken away by capitalists. That is why millionaires are going. Very simple. When economy develops, when production is increasing, These produced goods are to be purchased, taken by people, more than they should get income. But income will not be given to them, it will be taken away by the millionaires. Therefore, economy will be facing crisis, demand will not be there. Therefore, many things are there. So when state intervention is there, what is state intervention? Subsidies. Working class will have benefits. Peasants will have other benefits. Government will intervene in public sector. So this is state, this is capitalism, no socialism. But it is state capitalism, some kind of a state intervention. But in the 70s, what happened? I said that Nixon came, abolished the dollar convertibility in the 70s. Crisis is there. Crisis will be recurring for imperialism. Every periodic crisis will be there. So in the 70s crisis, what happened? 70s crisis is known as what is called stagflation. You might have heard the word stagnation plus inflation. Economy is depressing and inflation is going up. That is stagnation, inflation plus inflation means stagnation, inflation combined, it is known as stagflation. Stagnation plus inflation, stagflation. Then what happens? Instead of continuing the welfare state, in the 30s when crisis came, they implemented the welfare state. In the 70s when crisis came, what happened? They abolished the state intervention. From the 70s onward, 80s, neoliberalism came. Neoliberalism means corporatism means neoliberal corporatism means no state intervention, freedom, unfettered, uncontrolled freedom to corporate capital. That is what happened. Why? Because communists were facing many setbacks. Soviet Union turned to capitalist path, we know. Imperialism came in Soviet Union, we call social imperialism. China, 70s, after Mao's death, what happened? Then came China turned into the capitalist path. As a result, what happened? Most communist parties of the world also started facing problems. In India, we know, from the 50s, 60s onward, the communist movement faced many setbacks at a global level. Revisionism, sectarianism, on the one hand, right opportunism, on the other hand, left adventurism. So, in whatever way, communist movement also faced problems. What happened? Imperialism, when the crisis came, because there is no communist threat, in the 30s, communist advancement was there, therefore welfare state came. In the 70s, what happened in neoliberalism phase? That means serious attack on the working class. This is what happened. After that, after the collapse of Soviet Union in the 90s, what happened, you know, communism is over. American intellectuals, American theoreticians, you see, Francis Fukuyama, a theoretician is there, he said, end of history. End of history means communism is over. End of ideology means communism is over. Then what they did, they did another enemy. Communism will be there, anti-communism is always there. But they wanted another enemy. What was it? Global war on terror. Instead of communist enemy, a new enemy was found, that was Islam. Islamophobia. Islam is the basis of all terror. Now Palestine, Iran, everywhere we are seeing this. Europe we are seeing this. Islamophobia, anti-Muslimness is an ideology of imperialistic capital today. Global fascism. When fascism in the 21st century is advancing, unlike Hitler and Mussolini, some of our friends are saying that today fascism is not there because parliament is there, election is there. Mussolini and Hitler were very poor people. They don't know how to use parliament, how to keep parliament. That only RSS and Trump can use it. Now, capital is capable to keep parliament as a spectator. You see, any policy decision, what policy decision are taken in parliament? Do you say part of demonetization? No. Waqf Act? No. Insurance Act? Nothing. Everything is put in Parliament, no decision. Parliament people will oppose. They will be thrown away or they will be suspended from Parliament. If Rahul Gandhi raises a question, then his Parliament membership will be eliminated. That is what is going on. No policy decisions are taken in the Parliament today. If we want, we can debate. Parliament is expected that policy decisions are taken in Nagpur or in corporate boardrooms. Either in RSS headquarters or in corporate boardroom. This is not the case of India only. Wherever neo-fascism, I mean 21st century fascism. Fascism is the neoliberal period. So today, imperialism is resorting to far-right fascism. And Parliament elections are there, but decisions are taken not by Parliament. That is the situation. Therefore, today, why I am saying this, today after the post-Cold War, after Cold War, when Soviet Union collapsed, the Cold War is over. Post-Cold War means after Cold War, in the neoliberal period, today, imperialism has become more aggressive. American imperialism and overall imperialism became more aggressive. But another partner also came, that is China. We know that China, why China and Soviet Union, some people will say, I am saying some debate for, some people will say, India is also imperialist. Because India, Adani, Ambani are investing in other countries. Tata, Birla investing in other countries. Then why not India is also an imperialist? India is exporting capital because Lenin said export of capital is a feature of capitalist imperialism. Right? Lenin said export of capital is 5 characteristics of comrade Lenin said. One characteristic is export of capital. Am I right? Yes. Then India is also, Adani, Ambani also exporting capital. No. That was why what happened. After this under neocolonialism, under neoliberalism, an internationalization of capital took place. That was not there in the colonial period. I will not be extending much, I will be briefing. I will be briefing, coming to the point. Because many detailed discussions are there. Here, internationalization of capital means today, unlike the colonial period, today, a company, a multinational company can decompose its production into several stages, relocate the production into several countries at the same time. You know, postcode is here in Chennai. Postcode. That postcode is producing not in Chennai. Postcode producing the world over. So if the workers of Chennai make a strike, it will not affect the postcode. They will shift production to some other place. That is simple thing. Today, because of the developments in technology, artificial intelligence, digitalization, information communication, data processing, fourth industrial revolution, frontier technologies, many technological advancement is there. I will not go into details. Because of these technological advancements, today there is a global division of labor. Division of labor is not the country based. So in this situation, it is hierarchical. That means internationally capital is now circulating. Capital has its farthest global limit. It can spread across any country. Developed, dependent country, oppressed country, low-income country, developed country. American multinational can work in America, India, Sri Lanka, anywhere. No problem. Because capital is globalized. Because of the advancements in technology. Surplus value. Sorry, I am not going into Marxist things. But surplus value, you know what is surplus value?
working class 8-hour work, 4-hour wage, and 4-hour proof will be taken as proof. It is simple thing. A worker working for 8 hours, according to mass, 4 hours will be given as wage, but 4-hour work will be taken by capitalist. So 4 hours will be surplus value, simple thing. Now surplus value extraction is not taking place in a particular country. Surplus value, our Marxists should understand. Surplus value extraction is taking place at a global level. A multinational company can produce a commodity. You please analyze your mind. A multinational company can produce car, not in a particular factory in a country. Earlier it was there. Today, car manufacturing is taking place globally. Window case, tire, gearbox, anything can be produced in one country. Another thing in another country. All these things will be assembled in one country. This is global assembly. We must understand all these things. Therefore, surplus value extraction is globally, division of labor is globally, everything is internationalized. That is internationalization of capital in the 21st century. Therefore, Adani and Ambani like Indian capitalists also can be part of the imperialist hierarchy. Hierarchy means this is step by step. That it's a step by step hierarchical structure. In that structure, capitalists from poor country can also be taking part. Nepal, there is one. Recently we have examined Nepal, one of the most poorest countries in the world. You know, India, the big brother. India is the big brother in Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Okay, but that Nepal is, there is one Binoy Chowdhury. His name is Binoy Chowdhury. He is exporting, working, investing in 19 to 20 countries of the world. You check us. Binoy Chowdhury. That is it. His name is Binoy Chowdhury. Investing in almost 20 countries. Nepal is a poor country. Therefore, can we say that Nepal is imperialist? No. So, imperialism today is very complex. So, some countries maybe Adani Ambani are going to Europe. America also. A case is going on against Adani in America. That is why Modi is surrendering before Trump. Modi is surrendering before Trump because of Adani case in America. Because Modani, don't say about Adani, Modi plus Adani, that is crony capitalism, a word invented discovered by economists. That is called Modani. Modani is Indian word for crony capitalism, merger between the corrupt capitalist and the regime government. So this Modani is investing in America. A case is there, primary. So Modi is surrendering, not only because of the Epstein files. People are saying that Modi's name is there in the Epstein files. Therefore, Trump is using Epstein files to bargain, threaten Modi. Therefore, Modi is surrendering before Trump. Not only that, even if this is not there, Modi is, RSS is an American lackey from the very beginning. Colonial period, RSS was a lackey of Britain. Savarkar, he was how many times? 5 times, 7 times. He sought apology. So, it is in the DNA of RSS, Hindutva fascist. They are American lackeys. So, earlier they were British lackeys. So, today they are American lackeys. It is going on. So, therefore, even though capitalist support is from there, India is not an imperialist power. India is a regional expansionist power. Big brotherly approach to neighboring poor countries. That is India. That doesn't mean that India can compete with China or America. No. India cannot compete with America or China, but India can make adjustments. some bargaining with America, going with the some other power. For example, when Trump imposed 50% tariff, Modi went to China. You remember? Modi went to China when Trump imposed 50% tariff. Now what did Trump reduce the tariff to 18%? And BJP is saying that big bill. What is reality? When the Congress government was ruling, America was imposing only 2.5% tax on India, 3%. You check, only 3% tax on Indian exports by America. Or American tariff on Indian goods were only 3%. Now it is 18%, reduced from 50% to 18%. So BJP says that a success. No, it is a failure. Good, I am not going into those details. Comrades and friends, I am concluding my speech. I am coming to the core point. Today, you see West Venezuela. What is happening? Trump is becoming isolationist. His policy is isolationism. MAGA, make America great again. America first. Protectionist policies, that is protecting American economy. Isolationist policy. And he is departing from his old allies. European Union, he is contradictions there. He threatened to take away Greenland, so Europe will united together. And he is earlier Ukraine war. Trump was having adjustment with Putin. Now Trump don't want to waste money for Ukraine war. America is facing very serious problems. Here, Obama said in the beginning, America is withdrawing from even many things. Today, comrades, America has already withdrawn from 60 international organizations, including UN organizations, UNESCO, WHO, United Nations Human Rights Council, Climate Agreement, Transatlantic, this NATO, many things. Not only UN, many international organizations America is withdrawing because America is having no money. Earlier, in the 1945, America was having 50% of world production, 75% of world gold stock. Today, America is declining. America cannot have the power to maintain UN as earlier. America made the UN, but today America is collapsing UN because America is not having the capacity to maintain. Dollar is collapsing. Therefore, what Trump is doing? Trump is taking a policy of concentrating on Latin America, Canada, Mexico, then the entire Latin America from North Canada to the entire America, Trump is concentrating there, for one. And then second on Palestine, for the West Asia, Iran, Israel, that area. Other places, Trump is slowly withdrawing. Why? There is advantage. Venezuela is one of the biggest oil, its oil reserve is more than Saudi. We might have thought that Saudi is the biggest oil reserve. Venezuelan oil reserve is more than that of Saudi. That is why Trump is concentrating there. For that, Trump is bringing the old Monroe Doctrine. You know the Monroe Doctrine? 1830s Monroe. James Monroe was the American political leader at that time. He made a theory, Monroe Doctrine. What? He said that America will not intervene in Europe or any other country. Sorry. America will not intervene in any other country in the world. But no country in the world should intervene in America. In America. America means including Latin America. It is America's private property. Nobody. America's backyard. So that is what is called the Monroe Doctrine. Today Trump is invoking that doctrine. That is why now literature. In political literature today the word you see there is a word called Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine Now he is called Don Roe doctrine. What is Don Roe? Don means Donald. Donald doctrine, that is Don Roe. So now Monroe doctrine became Don Roe doctrine. Because that is why Trump is intervening in Latin America. He took away the president of Venezuela because of the oil reserve. What is his interest in Palestine? Many things are there. One, the Jews that the scientist Yankee, that American scientist integration. From the very beginning, American policy making, the scientists have a major role. Many these Democrats, many Republicans are all integrally connected with the scientists. From the very beginning, where the European companies, Rothschild, this Epstein is a Jew. Epstein is a Jew. He is a rich billionaire. He used the Democratic leaders, he used the Republican leaders, and he used the world leaders. British minister is resigning, Norway prime minister is in the jail, and many countries of the world are facing very serious problems because of Epstein file. He is having his origin in Israel. So that intimacy is there. Along with that, today, this Palestine question is very important because Israel is an outpost, military outpost of the US after the Second World War. For example, you take the case of Iran. Why European Union and America are obstructing Iran for making this nuclear this nuclear research? Why they are opposing? Why Israel had a bomb? 93 nuclear bombs are there with Israel. These are facts. Today 93 nuclear bombs are there with a small country, Israel. How? America, European Union, they enabled Israel to enrich uranium, transform it into nuclear bomb. International Atomic Energy Agency is a puppet, is an appendage of imperialism. So they took a blind eye when Israel was making. But against Iran they did not allow. Because Israel is a military outpost of imperialism after the Second World War. The entire West Asia, entire Iran, Saudi, UAE, Turkey, Oman, Jordan, Iraq, all countries, even Libya, Syria, wherever, Israel is the military outpost of America. So Trump is enriching it. That is why Trump is after butchering, exterminating, after genocide, everything. Now Trump is forming a board of peace with him as the chairman. So Trump is concentrating on Palestine. Then Islamophobia is there. Because after the Cold War, a new enemy, all over the world, Islamophobia is there. Hamas is the biggest terrorist organization according to America, Britain, Europe. They are saying that Hamas is terrorist organization. But Zionists are not terrorists. So now they are propping up Zionism. They are encouraging Zionism to eliminate the entire Palestinian people from West Asia. But at the same time, what is their approach to China? China, they are now a tactical approach. 145% tariff on China Trump imposed. You heard about that? India Trump imposed 50%. It took away 6 months. Then again bargained now 18%. But India has to allow free import of US products into India. The entire farmers, entire agriculture, entire economy is going to collapse. If 18% tariff is there for Indian products, Modi has to import all American products freely into India. That is not reported by Modi government. But regarding China, what is happening? China, Trump cannot impose 145% tariff, he said. But immediately what has happened in Qatar, in London, and in many other centers of the world by China and America had entered into an understanding. No trade war. No trade war. So that is the arrangement. China what is doing? China is an imperialist power. Chinese industry is not like that of America. You cannot copy from Anglo-Saxon imperialism in the case of China. Western notions of imperialism are not applicable to Chinese imperialism. China is operating in a different form, in a different way, not like America or Britain or Europe. China is using other means, Belt and Road Initiative in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, everywhere Chinese investment is very high. Africa, China is the biggest investor. Latin America, the biggest trader, China. Backyard of America, but China is the biggest trader. Even in Europe, in West Asia, Saudi, Iran, all these countries are having trade relation with China. So China is working in another way. That is Chinese method of or Chinese imperialism with the Chinese characteristics. That is China. So with China, America is having a cautious, a very adjustment is going on between China and America. You take the country, you take the case of Israel, you take the case of Palestine. Many rhetorics are coming. China is saying, oh, many huge things are going on, many things. Except these rhetorics, except statements, any intervention there from China. No. Why? China is the biggest trading. I am seriously telling in front of you. China is one of the biggest trading partners of Israel even now. One of the biggest trading partners of Israel is China. China is saying many things. Israel is doing that, condemnable, etc. But trade is going on. This is China. Europe. There are European governments are declining, but they are also biggest arms state. Trading relations are going on. Only Spain is having any cut. Only Spain has cut off the relation with Israel. All European countries are still having the relation with Israel. If you take a possession in Germany, in UK, for Palestinian people, you will be arrested. In Europe, this is the situation. Therefore, all America knows all these things. So all the imperialist powers are adjusting. At the same time, America is facing a crisis. Dollar is going down. American role in world economy is going down. Even though America is the leading military power, that military power cannot be sustained. America is abstaining from its global responsibilities as the international leader. That's what is happening today. Therefore, why the problem is the left is still having no clear-cut understanding of the working of imperialism or the laws of motion of capital. The laws of motion of global capital, on that question, left is having no proper understanding. I am concluding with one example. There are many countries in Europe, many communist parties in Europe. But that communist parties, as Comrade Manoharan said, you said about the Lenin's, okay. Lenin said one day, Lenin changed the strategic slogan of Marx. What was Marx's slogan? Workers of the world unite. You remember? Marx's slogan was workers of the world unite. What is Lenin's slogan? In the second Congress of Communist International Committee, Lenin changed the slogan from workers of the world unite to workers and oppressed peoples of the world unite. Remember? That is the present slogan. Why? There are two streams. When the revolution, according to Leninist understanding, that is Marxist Leninist understanding, Marx was in the 19th century. Marx is not a god. Marx is not. Communism is not a religion. We are materialists. So, according to the concrete situation, what Marx said in the 19th century, Lenin revised in the 20th century according to the laws of motion of capital. And according to Lenin, in the imperialist epoch, Afro-Asian Latin American countries, there you cannot have socialism, direct socialism. You need a path. You need an interim arrangement. And the imperialist task is private. In countries like India, democracy cannot be achieved. You cannot have freedom, democracy simply by overthrowing imperialism. More reactionary forces are in India. Caste system, many things are there. That is another question we will discuss later. So therefore, this democratic revolution, people's democratic revolution is very important today. Because socialist revolution in imperialist countries, democratic revolution in Afro-Asian Latin American countries, that is countries oppressed by imperialism. These two streams form world revolution. Social revolution in capitalist countries, democratic revolution in oppressed countries. These two streams, that is why Lenin coined the new slogan, workers and oppressed people so that when unite. But there is still the problem with many communist parties. That is the problem, understanding imperialism, world situation, country situation, many differences are there. That is taking advantage of my capital. Imperialism is taking advantage of it. You see, many communist parties are there. They have different ideology and orientation. They are understanding the world and the situation differently. So there is no possibility for understanding without having an ideological, political understanding based on Marxism Leninism today. I am not going into the details, but the point is, some communist parties in Europe, our friends, what they are saying that India is imperialist. South Africa is imperialist. Indonesia is imperialist. Brazil is imperialist. Argentina is imperialist. Turkey is imperialist. Iran is imperialist. Kuwait is imperialist. Such serious communist parties are there in the world. We are also friends with them. How can world revolution take place? What is it? India is an imperialist war. Do you agree? Because our policy decisions are taken by IMF and World Bank. You know what is the fiscal deficit in the Indian budget? It is decided by IMF, not by Indian Parliament. FRBM, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, an act was passed by Vajpayee. Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, FRBM. That act was passed by Indian Parliament when Vajpayee, first BJP government. Who dictated? IMF dictated. India can now only this much deficit in the budget. Because more deficit means more debt, then they will not get enough money for repayment from India. That is a point. Therefore, these questions we should be seriously discussed. Our policy decisions are not made by us. We are our technology, this fourth industrial frontier technology, I am concluding. Frontier technology, in all these frontier technologies, examine in all these frontier technologies, India is depending either on Western imperialism or on China. All the hardwares, I am specifically saying hardware of a technology, software of a technology, two parts are there. For software, India is depending on America, hardware, India is depending on China. This is the situation. So therefore, we have to understand all these things in the proper way. My point is that when imperialism is in a shifting stage, now American unipolar, imperialist power, a tiger, a lion. When a tiger or a lion is becoming old, it will become more aggressive. When you are strong, you will not be aggressive. Why Trump is, why America is becoming aggressive? Because American imperialism is weakening, declining. This is why we must understand the situation in the proper way. I am concluding. So this is not a final thing. We have to continue our discussion. So we are, if your understanding is open for a discussion, we will have an open discussion with all cooperators who are interested. We will continue the debate. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Sorry.